There are a few places left on Earth that awaken a piece of us that we didn't know existed. A consciousness reserved for those ready and willing to experience it. An understanding that magic and mystery exist outside of children's books and movies. A place that has remained unchanged in a hyperconnected world that reinvents itself every day, where every movement is deliberate and meaningful. And every second spent there is a chance to be reunited to the energy inside of us. The energy that connects us to each other, our planet, and the entire universe. Racetrack Playa, Death Valley is best known for its mysterious sailing stones. Weighing in at as much as 700 pounds, they inscribe visible tracks as they sail along the dry lake bed. This geographical phenomenon remained a mystery for over a century. It wasn't until 2014 when a group of scientists outfitted several rocks with GPS devices to track their movements and were able to witness the stones in motion. For an excellent video on how this mystery was solved, check out Physics Girl's channel. I'll link the video in the description below. Coming from Lone Pine, you head east down Highway 190 to Saline Valley Road. From here, you have two options. You can take the long way through Stovepipe Wells, past Furnace Creek, up and around Ubehebe Crater, and finally to Tea Kettle Junction and onto the Playa. Or you can take the much shorter and much more scenic route by taking a left here at Saline Valley Road, going up Hunter Canyon Road, and down through Tea Kettle Junction and of course onto the Playa. So if you have a car with decent ground clearance and are craving a little adventure, then I strongly recommend you take the shortcut. You're definitely going to want to air down your tires. The terrain is a little rough and there are definitely some washboard areas. Now, I love any opportunity to take the wilderness off-road, but this 2.5-hour adventure through the backcountry of Death Valley over the mountain is literally the most scenic and diverse drive I've ever been. As you head up the mountain, the terrain seems to change from one hairpin turn to the next. This drive really has it all. Look at these views. Just an incredible drive. But I guess I should warn you, if driving a few feet from imminent death is not your thing, maybe you should take the long route. At the top of the mountain, you take the obvious right to continue down the mountain into the Playa. We can't say we weren't warned if this comes to fruition for us. Don't let this be you.
For the record, I'm being the cool guy. I'm not worried about this. We're heading on the proper path, and before you know, we'll be in our tents, making some sweet love to the sky.
I hope he's right. I really do.
Into the black hole.
After miles of winding, rocky road, you're rewarded with an incredible meadow of Joshua trees. Now the road here for the most part is smooth and soft, so you can really let it rip through the final leg of your trip. Now I gotta say, driving through this completely remote, picture-perfect scene, hours away from cell service, with an incredible amount of caffeine coursing through my veins, was one of the most freeing experiences of my life. And if I'm being honest, I think about this trip literally every day. So just before sunset, I was able to get onto the Playa, and much to my surprise, there they were. The sailing stones right there in front of me, and they had the paths. The paths were behind them. I was so excited. Now, I gotta admit that part of my excitement is because this was my third trip to the Playa, hoping to see these rocks. And as you get to know me, you'll realize that I am not the greatest at finding things. So this journey today actually started 3 months earlier. And 3 months ago, we didn't have the luxury of daylight, so we headed out into the darkness in search for the sailing stones. And by the way, I would never ever recommend going out into the pitch black desert to try to find a composition. What we're doing now is we've got the camera as low as we can to the rock because it's the only pathetic rock out here, so it's not very big. So we're trying to make it look as big as possible. There's definitely no trail, which would have been ideal. But we're making it look as big as possible, and we're shooting into the best cluster of stars. We do have quite a bit of cloud cover. I'm not sure what kind of Milky Way we're going to get, but right now, what we're doing is we're going to shoot a 30-second exposure focused on the rock at a lower aperture, 2.8, so we can have a little bit wider of focus. And I'm going to light paint. I'm going to walk up and down with this little cube light. Very dim light, but when you're doing 30-second exposure, you don't need a whole lot. I'm going to walk up and down as the 30 seconds go to kind of evenly light this, a very flat light, so it looks like naturally just a dark scene, which you could see somehow. And that's it. That's the foreground. Then we're going to focus on the stars, and we'll take at least 10 exposures of the stars, and we'll put it together in post. So we did like 13 light painting shots, very dim light to make it look kind of natural. Hopefully, we'll see. And now we're taking 13. I feel like after 13 you're getting diminishing returns. I think 10 to 13 is really a sweet spot when you're talking about stacking for noise reduction. So we're taking 13 shots, ISO 3200, and when you're doing stacking for noise reduction, you can shoot at a higher ISO. Like these Sony cameras have such amazing dynamic range and low light performance that you never really have to go to 6400. You can actually get away with 1600 for the stars, but when you're stacking, I like to do 3200 because it just lets more in, and we're going to get rid of most of the noise anyways. So we're just doing 10-second exposures, 13 of them. And I gotta say, with my eyes, I can't really see many stars. The clouds are kind of rolling through. But when I see these shots on the camera, it looks pretty epic. Like the clouds, this is what I was hoping for. The clouds actually are providing like a diffusion for the stars, which make them look bigger. So it's not always a game over if you see the clouds in the forecast when you want to do some astrophotography. Actually, I mean, if it's 100% cloud cover, you're done. But I think that partly cloudy is actually the times where you're going to get the most unique Milky Way or any kind of star shots. So that's what we have right now, and I think this is coming out good. Okay, so I love and I hate this image. I love how this guy came out. I think with the thin layer of clouds covering the stars, it really looks magical to me. Love how this guy came out. Now the light painting came out surprisingly well. Now I wish I would have used a higher aperture though. The depth of field is so shallow that not even the entire rock is in focus. I like the texture of the playa in front of the rock, but the picture doesn't really make a whole lot of sense since the focus trails off quickly as we move up the frame, only to come back into sharp focus for the stars. So not sure most people would care or even know to care about this, but it bothers me. I really like this image. Now, I've been making an effort to feature myself in some of my shots. I think it adds character and can really create a story out of a landscape, especially when you completely failed at finding what you drove hours and hours off-road to shoot. So that being said, I think this one's pretty good. It took me about 20 attempts with the 10-second timer to get in position and then hold still for the length of the exposure. But I think it came out pretty well. And look at this sky. I mean, this is what I mean when I say, you know, if it's partly cloudy, it's not game over, because this, to me, is a really, really unique, colorful sky that you're not going to be able to duplicate. So I really like this one. I think it's my favorite one from this trip here where we didn't find any rocks. So here's one more from this trip. Now, this one was an editing project to say the least. Now, I've been pretty reluctant to do blue hour composites because I don't really like the idea of replacing the sky. It feels a little cheap to shoot the subject and the sky separately. I mean, it kind of takes away from the sport of it all, in my opinion. I mean, waiting all night for the Milky Way to line up and meticulously planning an image is what makes astrophotography unique in a slightly masochistic way. And the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because this image in particular would be way easier if it was a blue hour composite. I would simply set up the same exact shot, shoot it at f11 or a really high aperture, so everything's in focus infinitely. Even the mountains in the background would have some shadow details, and this would be really, really easy. So if I could put any starry sky behind any image, for me, the entire process loses authenticity, but that's just my opinion. So anyways, this is at least 10 images combined for just the shrubs in the foreground. I took dozens of 30-second exposures focusing and lighting different parts of the playa and the shrubs. And for the most part, I like how it came out. I mean, I like, just like the previous image with the rock, I like how the textures of the clay and the first few bushes came out, but the focus still tails off a bit too quickly. This one is much better in terms of focus than the other one, but I still wasn't able to piece together a shot that has infinite focus throughout. I also love how the sky came out, just like on the last one. I mean, it just looks magical to me with the clouds covering most of the Milky Way. I love how the sky highlights my favorite star, Antares. Antares is the big yellow star right in the middle. This star is actually 700 times the size of the sun, and I think it's the most beautiful star in the sky. So, here we are. We found a rock. We did it. Third time's a charm. I feel a little weak that we didn't find this the first 2 times. And really, literally, all I had to do was drive like a half a mile. There's a sign with a rock on it. But we're here now, and that's the important part. And it's 95 degrees, but it's not too bad. It's June 25th, could be way worse. So now that we found some rocks, there's a lot of rocks with some decent trails. I think this one looks really interesting. I like how this rock, I like the texture on this rock. I like how it's white. It might stand out better at night, in blue hour especially. So I do like that. And I like the track. I think the trail that it's left is pretty, you know, it's pretty evident and it's pretty pronounced. So now the Milky Way is going to come up right here at about 10:30, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this rock with this leading line should be pretty good. All right, so I think I got everything set up. Just going to sit here and wait for a little while the sun goes down a little more for the blue hour shot, the blue hour composite. And we will see. We will see. Here's our setup, our final setup. We've got the 14mm G Master, and we're pretty close to this rock. And we've got the trail. Okay, so here is what I've got framed up. I've got the rock right here, of course. You can't see it too well, but the trail goes right here from the rock. I've got the trail touching this third line, extending to this third line. I've got the rock just off-centered, touching that third line. I've got the sky in the top third. So ideally, we have the rock as your focus, your subject. The trail leads you up the frame into the Milky Way. I really love how this came out. In fact, I had it printed and framed, which I encourage anyone to do, especially if you're just starting out. Landscape photography, especially astrophotography, can be really tough. You know, a lot of things have to go your way to get a shot that you're actually proud of. And when you do, you should recognize it and you should celebrate it. So here I am, proud of a shot that was captured as a blue hour composite, which just a minute ago I said was cheating. That's part of the beauty of photography. You're always learning and improving your craft. This image proves to me that in certain instances, if you want to capture a scene correctly, a blue hour composite is the way to go. I mean, you have focus throughout and everything is exposed perfectly. And if you compare it to the last one with a light painted foreground, I mean, it's just an exponentially better result. I do want to be clear though. I still think it cheapens the experience if you have a library of Milky Way shots that you could just place behind any of your images. I mean, going around shooting a bunch of interesting foregrounds with no connection to the sky or the stars behind them, to me, is not really astrophotography. This blue hour composite was shot on the same night and in the same place. So this scene really played out as it was photographed. A blue hour composite was the best way to show this scene at its fullest, most beautiful state. Here's a shot of Mobius Arch at Alabama Hills I captured earlier this year. I took this shot at 4 a.m. as the Milky Way broke the horizon and moved into perfect position to be captured with the arch. This is one of my favorite images, and it's a time where light painting, in my opinion, was a much better choice than a blue hour composite. I'd like to hear your opinion in the comments about this. Are blue hour composites cheating? Anyways, I hope you had as much fun watching this as I had making it, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more videos just like this one.